yours on too, eh?
Correct. Yes, thank you.
And what we'll ask the group also around the table is when you want to speak, to press your button and don't speak before your mic is on, before I ask you to. And if somebody asked me sometimes ago, how do you know which light came on first? I said, I don't, but they don't either. I try to keep track. Okay. So, I got to get on the right track here. Yeah. Call the meeting to order, and the first item, I guess, is to approve the agenda. What's going on here? Been moved? Second. And seconded. Any additions or anything? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. I'll do this, I'll come. Stop.
Stop.
Oh, it's just,
Did you, here, why don't we do this?
no, that's all right.
Oh, okay.
It'll come on in a minute. All right. Conflict of interest declaration. Is there anybody around the table that has a conflict of interest with any of the items on the agenda? If not, we'll go on to presentation, and we have one presentation tonight from Scotian WindFields, Dan Roscoe, and he can introduce himself and his partner. Okay. Thank you. So you're going to, yeah, your mic is on, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Warden D'Entremont, for your introduction. My name is Dan Roscoe. I'm Chief Operating Officer with Scotian WindFields. Today we're here sort of on an information basis. We're in the process of developing a community-based wind turbine project in Little River. We are through the process where we've received approval from the Department of Energy. We've held one public meeting in the Wedgeport area. This is an information meeting where we've come into council to bring you up to speed on our progress. We have two other meetings planned in the near future. One is later in January, which I'll discuss a little bit, is more of our community investment side. It's our RSP season, and a lot of our funds raised for our projects are raised through RSP funds. And then a public meeting likely in May, as we get more up-to-date information about the specifics of the timing of our wind turbine installation once our design is complete. So in our presentation today, I'll give you obviously an introduction, which I'm doing right now. Give you a little bit of more information about our company, Scotian WindFields, our community structure, and a little bit of background of our community efforts over the last 11 years. Partnerships with other companies that are affiliated with this project that we're working on. And then a little bit about the community feed-in tariff program, a little bit of context for why this policy of the Nova Scotia government is moving forward, what are the objectives of that policy, to help understand why this project is being proposed. And then some specifics about the project in Little River, the timeline, and the various aspects of community support that have gone on already and are ongoing. So our company is a fairly diverse, community-based, locally owned company that's focused on all sorts of renewable energy. Obviously, well, not obviously, but we're broken into two parts. We started actually in probably 1999 with the basic concept that we have a huge amount of renewable energy here in Nova Scotia, and the benefits from developing those resources as much as possible should stay here in Nova Scotia. There's a number of community wind fields, and I'll give you a map of those in a second, that have been raising local funds through the CDIF program for investment into renewable energy. Subsequently, they formed a company called Scotian WindField Inc., who employ folks like myself and Neil to go out and actually develop projects. We started off 5 years ago, and now we have 16 employees involved in all aspects of renewable energy development on projects everywhere from Yarmouth to Inverness. In addition, we also do some smaller on-site wind turbines. We have a solar division called Dr. Solar, which is one of the largest installers of solar hot water systems, the type that you might find on the YMCA in Yarmouth, those types of hot water systems. We also have a group that does carbon consulting, carbon credits for companies that are reducing their carbon emissions here in Nova Scotia. As I mentioned before, there are 8 local groups that were set up. Starting in 1999, I actually got involved in the Chebucto wind field as an investor 7 years ago. And now there's over 1,000 people that have invested, 1,000 Nova Scotians that have invested in these groups around the province. They all have ownership in the company that I work for, and most of them also have a seat on our board. So we're truly community owned. I literally have over 1,000 shareholders that ultimately I report to. The group that's here in Yarmouth County is called the Bay Windfield, and they're the oldest, the most well-established, and the most well-supported of all the local wind fields. They have, I don't think the number's there, but we have over 250 investors. Yarmouth County, not Shelburne County, but Annapolis County and Digby County make up this area. You'll note on the slide that was posted on your website, it says Olive Cape Breton. That's left over from a presentation I gave in Port Hawkesbury a couple weeks ago for the Isle Windfield. So the Bay Windfield this is the accurate information here. They've raised a significant amount of money. I believe they've raised over $1 million in the last in the 8 offerings they have. They're currently raising funds right now, and it's through them that we will raise the project-related funds. And that's the meeting that will actually take place later in January. Will be put on by the Bay. Obviously, there'll be information about our project there, but raising of local investors will take place through the Bay Windfield. We're also working with a company called WEB Wind Energy out of Austria. Wind energy projects are very capital intensive and take a lot of experience and knowledge to build. We have over 20 projects that we're building throughout Nova Scotia, and WEB is a partner of ours on all of our projects to help us. They have experience. They actually started very much in the same vein as we did, about 20 people putting together money for one wind turbine in Austria. They now have 3,000 investors. They specialize in smaller projects like this, so they give us a lot of expertise, been able to leverage their relationships with turbine manufacturers, and will help us set up, ultimately, a team of Nova Scotians to help maintain and service these wind turbines that we're installing. So ultimately, our structure, people ask, well, how are you really community owned? How is this project being owned by the community? Well, ultimately, as I mentioned, average Nova Scotian investors, mostly in amounts between $1,000 and $10,000, have invested in RSP money and through the local CDIFs. They in turn invest their money through the projects that Scotian WindFields develops. That investment comes forward to the project and then makes its way back as projects are developed and become profitable. So it's important to understand that everyone talks about energy, everyone talks about policy. The community feed-in tariff is a special, somewhat innovative piece of energy policy that not only helps energy and helps stabilize our electricity prices, but also encourages local investment and local ownership. So it has sort of two focuses, or foci, I guess. One is energy policy, and the other is economic development. From an energy point of view, there are 3 things. The most important one that everyone focuses on is the price. The price of renewable energy, or price of energy in general, mostly our power bills, but all types of energy, continues to go up every year. I guess it's going up 3% this year and 3% next year. It has gone up almost 50% in the last decade. So significant increases, obviously, that hurts our economy. So renewable energy helps stabilize our electricity prices. People ask, well, why doesn't it bring down prices? Well, the prices are right around where we're paying for fossil fuels right now, but it's fixed, and it's fixed for 20 years. and I heard a great stat and one that Argyle should be proud of, because the power that's being sold from the Pubnico wind farm, which is the first wind farm in Nova Scotia, is now cheaper than the cost of coal. So that's fixed for 20 years. So the cheapest electricity we have in the province right now comes from the Pubnico wind farm. And that's a great example. That was the first. Now these projects are selling power at, the Confit project rates are higher than the Pubnico wind farm, but as rates in fossil fuel, cost of coal, cost of natural gas keeps going up, the price from this will be the same for 20 years. So that's really significant. The second part of it is that we import the vast amount. So not only is the price going up, but the money is leaving our province. I don't know if you can make out this slide very well on this, but this is a stat of how much we import versus how much we make locally of all of our energy. It's about a 9-to-1 ratio. This amount adds up to over $2 billion a year, leaves Nova Scotia to import energy. So it's not only a factor that we're trying to stabilize prices, we're trying to reduce our greenhouse gases, but it's a huge economic development issue. If the money that we spend on our power bills can stay here in Nova Scotia, it will make a big difference to our province. So the program was set up recognizing that both local ownership and renewable energy can both play a role. So they said, we're going to give a community feed-in tariff. A feed-in tariff is essentially a rate set in advance. So they've told us we're going to pay you 13.1 cents per kilowatt hour, which is pretty much bang on what we all pay at home right now for power produced by these wind turbines. These wind turbines are all locally based, set from an electricity point of view. They hook up to the local distribution grid. Our project hooks up to the grid that actually feeds back into Yarmouth, and 100% of the energy that's produced by these wind turbines will get consumed locally. So it's actually limited by the amount that gets used in the area to ensure that the energy output will always get used locally. In order to ensure local ownership, they set aside a group of community organizations that needed to own a majority of these projects. Those included municipalities, CDIFs, which is Community Economic Development Investment Fund, and that's the program that we're working under, First Nations, not-for-profits, and universities as well. There are a few different type of technologies that are allowed in this program as well. Wind is by far the most popular, although some biomass, tidal, and hydro is also eligible for the program. In addition to local ownership and fixed prices, a big part of community ownership is due diligence. The ComFit program has a substantial checklist of items that we need to review in order for these projects to go forward, in order to get approval from the Department of Energy. Environmental checklists, community support. We have to work with First Nations. We do a substantial communication review, which in this area will include radar, includes cellular work, D&D, Environment Canada, Transport Canada. We do a culture and heritage review, and we also obviously have to work with the municipal building and planning. We have been working with your planning department for some time now on permits for this project. I should also, I guess at this point out that this project is somewhat different in this fact that it's a set rate in advance, and the standards are set really high from a due diligence point of view. Larger wind farms in this province, and I know there was one proposed at one point, although it wasn't successful here in Argyle, they go through a more competitive process where they have to do all this work afterwards, where this program is an upfront requirement that we have to go through this due diligence upfront before we even get the approval that we've received from the Department of Energy, sorry. The Department of Energy actually has what's called a one window committee, and they work with natural resources, environment, finance, all the various components that oversee this. I think I've said most of this before. We're working on projects through our community groups all over Nova Scotia, everywhere. Well, I normally say from Yarmouth to Inverness, but I guess when I'm here, I get to say from here to Inverness. We have 25 projects that we proposed. 6 of them have been awarded so far. Most of them consist of a single wind turbine. This is an example of a project of this size. This is one in Grand Etang. There's another one very similar to this in Church Point and Clare. There's one or two north of Digby, Culloden, that'll be projects of this similar size that already exist. These aren't a large wind farm like Pubnico or Digby Neck. They're single wind turbine. Most of these turbines can power 500 to 600, if not more, homes. So that's a rough idea, the size of these projects and how much power they generate. So this is the slide showing the general area of Argyle and our Little River project. You can see, I don't know if you can make it out with the arms over here. Obviously, we're right here right now. So this is the area right near Comeau Hill Road, Black Pond Road. Our original location was here, on just south of Black Pond Road, but in discussions with the planning department here, we found that the bylaws were changing. Obviously, a lot of lessons have been learned about wind energy in Argyle, and the bylaws are changing to reflect that. Our original location was 600 meters from the nearest house, and we had a test tower up here. A test tower looks like a small cell phone tower where we used to measure the wind speeds. So based on the feedback we got from the planning department and the upcoming change, we moved our project to be actually closer to our test tower. It's now 960 meters from the nearest home. Certainly most of the bylaws in Nova Scotia range between 300, 500, 700 meters. Some of them are up as high as 1,000. So we're certainly meeting our due diligence here by the spacing of this project, and certainly far greater distance from homes as the Pubnico wind farm was.
How far, if you wouldn't mind me to stop you right there while you're on it?
Yeah.
From a cottage? Are you from the nearest cottage? I have a cottage on the road going in.
All buildings and all residents are on this. So
So you are,
so-
the 960 would be
yeah,
cottage
it's
home?
yeah, it's all buildings essentially. So. If there's a specific request, often people will come and say, well, how far is it from my house? Or sometimes, depending on the topography, what it's going to look like from my house. And that's something we can always help with. And we have some examples in our public meeting we had in Wedgeport. And again, in the open house we'll have in May, we'll have that information of, where bigger, more detailed maps than this that people can go up and look and say, where am I? What does it look like? Example pictures of what it's going to look like. The turbine itself is a Vestas turbine, similar to the brand that's actually in Pubnico. Newer models, obviously, this is the V100. It's a new, the newest technology when it comes to utility-sized turbines. We have a 95-meter hub. That's essentially the length of the football field up to from the ground to the hub, the center point where the turbine spins from. And the blades will be 50 meters each, essentially. These turbines, the larger the turbine becomes, the slower it rotates, which is important. This turbine will rotate around, essentially, on average, around 15 revolutions per minute. Once every 4 seconds, this is going to turn. So it spins very slowly. As I mentioned, a single wind turbine. This is a picture of what it would look like, obviously. Not exactly the same. I think we already talked about most of this, but the benefits of projects such as this, stable electricity prices and clean energy, reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. Nova Scotia Power has some of the dirtiest energy in essentially the developed world. We're doing we're making great strides in reducing that. When I started in the renewable energy industry about 7 years ago, we were at 80% coal. Now we're down to 56%. So we're making great strides. I think we'll be less than half of our energy from coal within a couple of years. Health benefits, lower cost of society. Obviously, there's a lot of emissions associated with fossil fuels and health effects. This project will generate local tax revenues, the majority of which will come to the municipality. There'll be local jobs in the construction, and obviously clearing, maintenance, site work, most of which will be filled locally, all of which will be in Nova Scotia. In addition to all of this, and in addition to the local investment opportunity, all of our projects have what we call a community dividend, where we set aside 1% of our revenue for investment back into the community, in addition to the local investment. So this is essentially money that gets aside in our annual budget for investment in the community. This is something we actually started at the Digby Neck wind farm when we were the initial developers there, and the money was set aside. The first year went to putting in a well at the local community hall. Another project we're developing, money's going towards search and rescue. We've received some feedback from here that money may be well spent to the local volunteer fire department. It's up to the community. We're not going to say exactly where it goes, because obviously we're going to take input from the community, invest it as they see fit. I had one great story of a project we're doing outside of Elmsdale, where they're setting up a scholarship fund with the money that we're putting aside for the community dividend. So from a timeline, our project was awarded some time ago in 2012, and we've been testing the wind since May with the Met Tower that we have there. We're just in the process of finishing up all our environmental studies. We went through what's called an environmental impact statement. A copy of that is on our website if you're interested in reading it. And we've done all the follow-up studies that recommended, including bird studies, archaeological studies, and we've done some noise and visual impact statement assessments as well. We've had our first public meeting in June. And we're having 2 more meetings coming up, one of which will be based on the local investment, which will take place later here in January. And then we're going to have an open house on a project developed in the spring once we finish we're in the process of doing our engineering, and then we'll be able to give a more accurate idea of the schedule of the project as it's going forward.
Are both of these meetings, open house,
Yeah.
in Wedgeport?
Yeah, the location's not determined yet.
Okay.
We're just, we're trying to get the exact location of the meeting in January, and we'll plan the May one when it comes up.
Yeah.
But it's more of an idea just to give, obviously, the investment side, they're RSP eligible, so sometime before the end of February, the investment needs to take place. To be eligible, we're in the process of design. We don't have a whole lot of updates since our last meeting, so once we have more information, we'll have an open house style meeting where people can come and ask questions and get more information.
I think Councilor Murphy, do you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, well, I'm just, you're proposing this for Little River, and there should be, public meetings for this in Little River. It's crucial to have this done in Little River, not Wedgeport, not Argyle, not, it has to be done for the people that are affected with this project if it goes through, So I think it's very imperative of you to have the meetings set in, because we have a community hall down there.
Yep.
And I think it should be done down there.
Well, that's, we'd certainly take you up on that recommendation. One of the things we do for all of our public meetings is we set out letters in advance, and that's based on literally anyone within 3 kilometers of our site will get announcements of our public meetings. So,
Include the whole thing.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah. And if you
include the whole commercial Little River.
and that's standard practice for us to ensure. Sometime we don't always get a meeting right, at the exact location. We always make sure we invite all the people that are closest.
Yes, thank you.
Donaldson, do you have?
Yes, a question. If you develop this project under the CEDIF program, does it trump any other confit projects within the municipality, if the municipality wanted to do one, or a First Nations co-op?
There's a set capacity, a certain amount of capacity that's available. It's not dependent on the type of community. It's a first come, first serve access to a given capacity. As I said, the amount of what they call ComFit capacity, if you will, is based on the amount of energy that gets used here locally. They have set for the Yarmouth area, which is the feeders that go back into Yarmouth, there's approximately 4 megawatts, which would be 2 projects like this. And we do have another project of a similar size to this that we're also working on. There are other areas north of Yarmouth, and then there's another substation in Tuscott, and further ones down the road. So each little area will have its availability. So in the area that feeds back into Yarmouth, there's one project been awarded so far.
So you said 4 megawatts
For Yarmouth, yeah.
For Yarmouth,
And there's a map on Nova Scotia Power's website.
Okay.
I mean, if you go to renewable energy and ComFit, you can see a map, and it'll show you where all the little substations are, and how much capacity is available in each one.
So each one does go 1.5 to 2 megawatts?
That's right.
Okay. Are you familiar with the Seaforth windmills? Do you know what they produce?
I
I'm
am.
thinking a half.
Actually, the Seaforth wind turbines are 50 kilowatts, so actually 0.05 megawatts.
Okay.
There are two classes of wind. There's the large wind, which are sort of projects like this, like the turbines that would make up the Pubnico wind farm of that size. And then there is a small wind, which is a much smaller scale, 50 kilowatt machine. The two are somewhat independent. The limits for the small wind, like the Seaforth wind turbine, are based on so many per municipality, I believe it is. And they're independent of the large wind, which is based on capacity. So I think there's 5 allowed in each municipality, if not more. I believe they might have raised that to 8. We've sort of focused on the larger size because of the amount of investment we've had, the 1,000 shareholders. It doesn't make to split up a $300,000 project. Doesn't split very well 1,000 ways. So I know a lot of municipalities are working with the Seaforth wind turbine, and the Seaforth wind turbine is in the process of being tested, which will allow it to get certified and be part of the program.
Thank you. I know there's several municipalities that are looking at that
Yeah,
option.
I know
And
Guysborough.
Actually,
Yeah.
development, I think District of Shelburne is one.
Shelburne, we've been talking with Emily and Kirk at Shelburne. They're looking at a couple different projects. I know Guysborough, New Glasgow, town of New Glasgow. There's been a few.
I'm no expert at this, I just happened to go to that
Yeah.
Nova Scotia Tariff Conference this
Yeah.
last
I think,
fall.
The closest example of one of the Seaforth wind turbines is at
University of
is at St. Anne.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Pointe-Église.
Yeah.
That's an example of that size of wind turbine.
I think a couple of years ago, they had some kind of a wind survey, if you want to call it that, right, for
Yeah.
for Shelburne and Cumberland County, I think.
That's right. Yes.
So they have that information.
What they did is a process, the Wind Education Committee, which I know you're familiar, was trying to educate these local municipalities with how to best plan for renewable energy. So they went through and assessed where the lines are, where the power lines are, where the wind is, where appropriate places to develop based on those.
Shelburne County, of course, their best places are so far from the grid that
Yeah.
with these ComFit.
It's
all
always a
different.
challenge. I mean, we often get questioned, why don't we put these wind turbines in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
where there isn't any roads or any people, but there's no power lines there. And we always have to balance that power lines are expensive, roads access is expensive, and the Nova Scotia government tries to balance, well, we need to keep costs down for ratepayers and make sure we build projects in a respectful way, in a way that makes sense. And generally all of our projects are around a kilometer from roads, which normally means they're a kilometer from houses, which makes sure
Yeah.
they're developed in an appropriate way.
Okay.
I think I'm pretty much done my presentation, actually, but I'll certainly take any more questions if anyone has any.
Or is this the North Sea, that next step?
Oh yeah, this is actually this is Middle Grunden, which is in Denmark, Copenhagen.
Oh, yeah.
And I've had that as the last slide of. I've been doing this for a while, and I've always had that last because it's community owned. And me being from Halifax, we have a harbor not unlike Copenhagen's. This is a 20 turbine project which is owned by a co-op in Denmark. So this is locally owned, probably the biggest and most well-known locally owned wind farm. And you never know. We have a lot more appropriate land on land to develop before we go offshore, but someday we might have something like that somewhere along the coast of Nova Scotia.
Okay, anybody have any questions? I think, yes, Lucien.
If I understood correctly from your map, your proposed wind turbine is 900 and what, sorry, 50? 60?
960 meters.
60 meters from the nearest dwelling.
That's right.
Isn't it my understanding that our bylaws recommend that it's 1,000 meters?
Yes, I can
That's
address
correct.
that.
Yes.
I can address that issue. In fact, what happened was the process of changing that bylaw was triggered with an advertisement in the local newspaper. Once the process of council goes through the readings and the approvals, once it's advertised in the Vanguard, indicating that it will be increased to 1,000 from, I'm estimating, approximately 280 meters previously. No other applications can be accepted.
Once it's gone public, you're saying the application was put in before it was?
I'm saying that the application for this particular project was received, not approved, but received before that advertisement went out. I remember that being a question very specific around the Anaya project, and there was no such application.
Right.
There was an application under Scotian. Scotian had to meet some of the changes that we made previous to this is the 1,000 meter adjustment is the second adjustment to the wind turbine rules and regulations.
That's right.
So Scotian had to ensure that it met all of the changes, with, of course, the exception of the 1,000 meter, because that one had not gone through before the application was received. So it's not when the application is approved, it's when the application is received. And in this particular case, that is what happened. And I understand that
But any wind farm, what you're saying, any wind farm in the future?
without question,
Without
I can
doubt,
confirm
there's
there's no,
1,000 meters.
yeah, there's no application in play right now that's being considered. And if there was, they would absolutely be under the 1,000 meter distance. And I can see that you had adjusted your plans, I guess,
Yeah.
knowing that the bylaw was.
Yeah, I don't think it
changing.
was certain at the time we moved the project of exactly what that number would be. Moving a project is a lot of work for us, just, wind analysis, geotechnical, environmental. But we moved it in anticipation that the bylaw was coming. We didn't know the number was going to be 1,000. We're quite close to it. 40 meters is only a short distance, but yeah, that's why we moved, because we anticipated the changes.
That's good, yeah.
So I encourage everyone, if there's more, we have site maps, we have our environmental impact statement up on our website, scotiawindfields.ca. So if there's more detail, if people have questions, we're sending out newsletters and information, and as we're having more public meetings. So there's lots of opportunity. If you or your constituents have questions, we have people on the other end of the phone. If people have phone call questions and just have basic questions, we're open. I want to make sure every question that gets asked gets answered.
I see we have another renewable energy conference coming up
That's right.
in April?
April, I believe, yeah.
April, I think, yeah.
Yeah,
Got the email the other day
yeah, and we hope.
in Halifax.
So your website again is?
It's scotianwindfields.ca.
Scotian,
Windfields.ca.
Is there an S at the end of field?
Yes, Scotian with an N,
Hello.
Windfields plural.
I'm just
I think that should
updating
be-
our Facebook for the email address, for the website.
Yeah, well, here it is, Scotian, this is our community coordinator, and her email address at the back is the website.
Yeah.
ScotianWindfields.ca.
That's correct.
www.scotianwindfields.ca. Okay, I think I have it right.
Okay.
I'll check it again.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other questions? Well, thank you very much for hearing our presentation, and look forward to talking to you again in the near future.
Thank you very much, Dan. And we'll probably see you at the public meetings, and I'm sure, yeah, maybe at the conference, you never know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been to the last two, and it's
Yeah.
kind of interesting, very interesting. Right. Next item is adoption of minutes, committee of the whole meeting of November 27th.
So moved.
Moved and seconded to approve those minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. The regular council meeting of December the 11th. Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Next item, we're going to business. Business arising from minutes. Council stipend. Do we want to deal with this tonight? We have, some of these things have to be done sooner than later, I guess. We have a few items to discuss tonight. I'm not sure if council wants to tackle this. Do you want to save this for the committee of the whole meeting, or Councilor Tourette?
I think it's a good time now as any to start to talk on this. And I know we have a lot of things, but I think this is important. We've had two meetings, and we were waiting for everybody to be here, so I think it's a great time. Like the president. And I'll just put my 2 cents worth, I guess, on this. And I think the stipend should stay the same. The increase to CPI this term is a question that I can throw out to the other councillors if they're willing to put an increase there according to CPI, whatever the CPI is per year for the next 4 years. Personally, I'd rather see it stay like it is, but whatever. Somebody wants to talk about it. On that item also, I saw that the pension plan is a voluntary plan, and I agree that it stays voluntary. And I also think that the meals and the travel that we're being paid should status quo, stay the same. And I guess in these times of it's been kind of tough for everybody out there trying to make a living, and I think we should hold the line and be transparent and show the people that we're concerned, and we know how much it costs for people to live, to pay their taxes, and we should do our part. And if we status quo, stay the same for our stipend, I think we show the people, the taxpayers, that we're concerned and we want to do our part. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Councilor Tourette. Anybody else has anything to say on that? I guess what you're saying is leave the stipends as is
That's it. Yeah.
for now,
Yeah.
but maybe,
The increase of CPI would be if council wants to talk about it. I don't.
but not changed, no.
Not change the stipend.
No,
The actual
of course not.
stipend that we all make stay the same.
Okay. Councilor Murphy.
I agree with Councilor Surratt. I'm not here I was never here for the money. I'm here for the people that put me here. I agree with Councilor Surratt's recommendation, and if he moves that motion, I would gladly second it.
Thank you. Councilor Burke.
I just have one question. What's CPI?
It's basically the inflationary increase. So there's a lot of different terms that are used. Some is just inflation. Consumer price index
Okay.
is what the term is.
Sorry.
But there's a variety of different ways that's measured. So I really I don't know if I can answer that question properly, because depending on how you look at it, it could be a different number. But it is generally considered to be the consumer price index, which is generally inflation for the year.
Okay.
And this is what the staff are getting.
Typically, what happens with CPI is it drives a number of decisions. Number one is it drives the decision for the cap on assessment. I think that's significant for council to be aware of.
That's right.
Because the cap on assessment caps our ability to generate funds through assessment. So if my home, I'll use my home as an example, goes from market value 130 to 150 in a particular year, for whatever reason, I might like it if I'm selling it. I'm not particularly fond of it if I'm not selling it, maybe. But the restriction on the increase is restricted to the consumer price index. So the tax that I will, even if my market value goes from 130 to 150, my taxable value will only go up 3%. So my tax bill will only go up 3%, assuming all rates stay the same. So we estimate that rate to be we're not 100% sure right now. I heard 1.2, I also heard 1.8. So I haven't seen an official document that says
Here,
what that number would be.
About 2 or 3 years ago, it was 0 1 year, right?
I think it was 2 years ago that
2 years ago.
that the inflation was 0. So any increase to the taxpayer in that year was based entirely on whether or not they qualified for the cap, for the cap on
Yeah,
assessment.
cap, yeah.
Not everybody is actually impacted by that cap. Residents of the area are. Non-residents with seasonal dwellings are not subject to the cap, and commercial business is not subject to the cap. Or if you've done major renovation to your home, it gets more complicated as I keep talking. So I'll stop.
Or
I'll
if
stop.
a home is sold,
Yes.
then
It gets adjusted one time to the market value, so
Yeah.
you could be capped at 130, you sell your house for 150, in that year, the person who purchased your home will pay tax at 150, but then the year after that, the cap will again apply to the 150.
Yeah.
So a lot of pros and cons around that, and I know that's not the topic, so I will be extremely brief, but basically, at the end of the day, there's a lot of argument that says it's not an equitable way to deal with assessment. And that's an argument that the UNSM has made unsuccessfully.
you can have 2 similar homes, and one gets sold and the tax goes up, and the other one, if it doesn't get sold, it's capped, so it doesn't. So you have 2 similar homes, and one is paying a lot more than the other. And Councilor, Deputy Warden.
Yeah, I have a question for Councillor Surratt. So if we freeze the stipend, I'm going to say freeze it at whatever the rate that it's now, is it going to be revisited next year, or is it just a yearly thing, or I guess just trying to clarify?
The motion I would be prepared to make is to status quo for 4 years, the term.
Okay. That's what I want to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Donaldson.
Basically what I was gonna ask, but the last 4 years it's been frozen,
Yes, sir.
the CIP, but we've done it on an annual basis, usually at our budget deliberation time in the spring, or when you bring it forward as to salary raises for staff to apply that CIP.
Yeah.
To me, I prefer to do it yearly, because when we went through this one time, we froze our stipend for about 10 years or 12 years, something like that, and then all of a sudden, we fell way behind other municipalities of our size and in the area. So when we made a jump to catch up, it became very controversial. So, I mean, if we go 4 more years, we've gone into 8 years without looking at it. And so I think we should do it yearly and keep an eye on what other municipalities are doing and not fall way behind like we did before, because I remember it was very controversial.
No.
So.
Thank you.
That'd be my recommendation, but I'm not gonna make that a motion.
Councilor Muse.
I guess my question was as well regarding the cost of living, the CPI. Are you saying that we don't increase with the CPI? If we freeze at what we are now, is what you were saying. I can understand, right now, we're pretty even. When you look at compared to other municipalities and other towns,
Yeah.
we're very close.
Yeah.
And I think that you know, we're probably at a good rate right now. I can see where Councillor Donaldson was saying that apparently I wasn't here then, but you did fall behind, and then when you try to catch up, it's more noticeable, like you know, because it seems like you've got to give yourselves a bigger raise at one time, and what happens is that's where the public really sees that as, you know, look at them, they're giving themselves, you know, this much raise. Would it be good to look at least the cost of living and maybe look at it on a yearly basis? That would be my
Your preference?
preference, I think. Not saying that we got to give ourselves the cost of living, but at least look at it on a yearly basis to see if other municipalities are giving themselves the cost of living, which I don't know if they will or if they do, or
think
if they
they
won't.
do.
But at least if you review it on a yearly basis, you're not stuck there for 4 years while the others are your spread gets wider and wider.
Thank you. What happened, a little history, like Donaldson says, we fell way back. And then 4 years ago, we were up higher than all the others for councillors. So that's why we froze it for 4 years. That was the reasoning. So now the others have caught up to us, see? So if you let it go like you suggest, maybe CPI, then we keep up with the rest. But that's why we had froze it 4 years ago. We froze it for the term, for the 4-year term. Surratt, did you want to?
Just to add on, I'd like to make a motion that we freeze our stipend for the 4 years, and that we increase with the CPI and review it every term. That's my motion. Does that make sense?
I don't think. You
Okay.
can't use the word freeze if we're
Okay.
going to raise by CPI.
Yeah, I know what I
You
said.
don't want to,
Thank you very much, guys.
Freeze it for this year, and
Yes.
then revisit in a year, take the CPI into account, see
Thank
what
you.
it looks like, and then make a decision there.
I contradicted myself, thank you.
Yeah,
for-
yeah.
Yes, I would like to make a motion that our stipend stays the same status quo as it was last year, and that we revisit it in 2013. 14. Thank you.
so we're still not.
Motion seconded. Just out of clarity, when you say year, the accountant in me says, is it calendar or is it fiscal? I'm sorry. So I guess what I'm asking is for clarity for your motion is.
Fiscal.
You're not looking at making the change this budget season. You're looking at maintaining it for essentially 15 months.
Right on.
Okay, all right, so,
Thank you for
so
clarifying.
that's okay, so it would be looked at the 2014-15 budget.
Thank you. That's exactly right.
Okay, I just wanted to be
So-
super
Thank
clear.
you.
It-
I'm still, okay.
All right,
Sorry.
so from my understanding is there'll be no change today, and in the budget deliberations forthcoming in April of this year, there will be no change. It will extend into May, it'll come to March 2014, and in the budget of 2014-15, which begins in April, May, the deliberations, it's at that point that council will consider whether or not an increase is warranted.
So you would hold it where it is, no CPI
No
increase,
CPI.
nothing.
So the motion
Do we have a seconder?
was seconded
Yes, that's right.
until March 31st, 2014.
Exactly.
Okay, got that clear now. We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Yeah, Mr. Warden, I don't know that, and I didn't want to confuse the motion, but there were other items that
Yes.
could be addressed. If there are no changes, I don't think a motion's necessary in terms of travel, reimbursement, et cetera. If there is a change, it
Yeah.
will require a motion. I believe that Councilor Surratt had indicated that status quo was
Well, it's
was
done
his
by policy,
was his
right?
or
Not really.
for
Some of
staff,
it.
certainly. For staff,
Staff,
certainly, it
yeah.
is done by policy, and could be done by policy with council as well.
Okay.
And I guess and I, basically, council mimics the policy that staff has
Yeah.
for travel and
Yes,
meal
okay.
reimbursement.
Good. Thank you.
So,
Yes.
This doesn't mean we're just looking at the stipend here. We're not looking, and the travel, but I mean, when you're talking about staff, we're not freezing staff.
No, no.
By no
This
means.
is-
No, no,
No, no.
No, no,
Okay.
this is,
Council.
no, this is
I didn't
council,
wanna-
council stipends only, and,
Yeah.
but I appreciate the clarification. And so, essentially, what I am saying, though, is that, the council has mimicked the policy on travel
Yes.
and on reimbursement for meals, which reimbursement for meals is $10. It's a set amount, 10, 20, and 30 for breakfast, supper.
For both staff and,
For-
we have the same
Same.
travel
Yes.
policy as
Correct.
staff?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
In terms of travel reimbursement on mileage.
Yes.
And in terms of meal reimbursement.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Good.
So that was my point. I didn't want to make it.
But I just wanted to
Confusing.
clarify that we didn't freeze the staff.
No, no, no. Can't freeze the staff. Thank you, Councillor Hill. Okay, next item is conference attendance policy.
If you'd like, Mr. Warden, I can give a little background on this.
Okay, yes.
If you don't mind.
Yeah.
If council doesn't mind. Essentially, this was a follow-up. We do this, we seem to address this as well as stipends every time we have an election, and there's a reason for that, because the decisions that were made by council in terms of stipends actually expired. So we had to deal with it. So it felt logical to kind of continue on and look at everything as a body. But the conference attendance policy is a separate policy, and so the idea that staff has presented is what I asked staff to do is present a comparison around what other organizations of similar size are doing. As well, what I did was, and you may not have seen this item in your initial package, it was a last-minute kind of add-on. So if you want to refresh that particular item, on the back of your report, we did some financial analysis. We went back 3 years on what FCM, and I think you were all emailed that because we knew it was a late edition. But
Yeah.
very simple document that basically says how many people registered and what the total cost was and what the average cost was by participant. And what you'll find is the average cost is fairly consistent for the FCM. There's a very good reason for that. It's the way that the policy actually works. There is a cap, I guess, on reimbursement of travel at $750. So regardless of whether you go to Halifax or whether you go to BC, the FCM reimbursement policy says we reimburse travel up to $750. So that's why it's fairly consistent regardless of where it's located. What you'll find is the UNSM fall conference it can jump around. And when you see the big number, you know we're going to Sydney. And that's basically how it works. With the UNSM, again, it's all province, it's all provincial, and we take our turns in hosting it. And in fact, the spring UNSM is to be hosted in Yarmouth, which will make our travel costs considerably lower. And so we have hosted the fall UNSM, which generally attracts a lot more people. The spring is a smaller conference. Also, it's generally in Halifax, so it's hosted in Halifax every second year. So it can be in Digby, it can be in Antigonish. So, and that's how the UNSM works. The UNSM and FCM, they know well in advance, or the FCM certainly does well in advance, which cities will be hosting that particular conference. There are many municipalities that participate in these conferences. There is value in these conferences, and so the purpose of I guess bringing this to council to consider is what's the cost benefit analysis that you're comfortable with. In other words, I mean I've attended both FCM and UNSM. They're very valuable, especially if you're new, because you get a new experience and you meet new people. It's very, very good. But of course, there's a point where council should look at, okay, well, should there be restrictions in terms of how many go per year? I think everybody should experience it if they're willing and able. It's been an excellent experience for all the councillors that have attended from the feedback that I've received from council. So I guess I just wanted to kind of set the stage for some of the information that might be attached and the last minute addition. And we just basically wanted to do a comparison for you and let council decide what it wants to do. But we need, if there's going to be a change, we'll require that direction from you.
Okay. Murphy?
I think it's very important for, it's like our CEO was saying, FCM and UNSM, I picked up a lot of things from there. And it's not, it's like I said, it doesn't cost any more to go to Halifax or to go to Australia. It's the same thing. It's the same cost. We pay our own way. We always did. So, you know, I think it's very important for what you get out of these conferences. I think it's important that, and it's not everybody that goes. We don't all go. Some people want to go, some people don't want to go, some people can't go. And last year there was 3 that went to FCM. So I feel that it's important for councillors to attend these conferences, because there's a lot of information there for our communities that we get. I did get a lot of stuff out of there, and I think most of the people that is around this table, you know, especially like not the new ones, but you will get a lot of things out of there. You're networking with people. There's people that have problems, or you have a problem in your community that you will find maybe up there, and I know you will find somewheres that they have the same problem, and they've solved it through their council and through their communities and help their communities, and you can bring that back here and say, oh, you know, I know Councilor D'Entremont here. He you know, he done tremendous work at this council here through FCM and UNSM, what he got from there. A lot of work. I know that. So, me, myself, I think we should leave it status quo, leave it the way it is. If we want to go, we can go. If we don't want to go, we don't go. But I think we should leave it the way it is.
Thank you. Don?
Yes, I was part of developing this original policy, and it's usually FCM that's the controversial one. And as you can see, 3 went to Toronto, Halifax, 7 went because it's somewhere you can drive, and Regina or Saskatoon, 3 went. So it's not being abused. It was developed, one of the main reasons, and we still have 4 here that are in the lobster fishery. And I won't say the majority, but pretty well half of them are usually the last week in May, so that disqualifies 4 of us to start with. So if you start drawing for when you go, you got to take into account when the 4 of us could possibly go. And I like it the way it is, and that's one of the reasons I like it the way it is, because of the scheduling is not in June very often. So
That is true, yeah.
and so I see no problem with it. It's not being abused. Generally, there's no public outcry, or we haven't been hearing that. So I suggest we leave it the way it is. In fact, I'll make a motion, we leave the policy the way it is.
Okay. Any more discussions? LeBlanc?
I find there's kind of 2 different opinions when you talk about this subject. The first being probably because the general population is misinformed how reimbursement occurs, but you know, some people tend to look at it as, the councillors are going off somewhere far or whatnot on taxpayers' money, which isn't exactly the case. And the second way of looking at it is the benefits, obviously, and the reason for going to these conferences. I spoke to some councillors who went, and for the amount of money it costs to go to these conferences, he brought back hundreds of thousands of dollars to his municipality because of some information and some networking that he did at these conferences. Myself, I believe in making an informed decision, and being a new councillor, I haven't been to one of these conferences, so I don't feel like I have I have justice in making a decision to change anything now. So I believe we should, agreeing with Councillor Donaldson and Murphy, we should keep status quo until I actually attend one and see how useful they really are.
Thank you. Surratt?
Well, I guess I'm going to be the controversial one here. I guess I see it as a perk for the councillors. The FCM I'm speaking about. I don't fault anyone that has gone. I didn't go the last 4 years. I don't agree with it. It's costing over $100,000 in the last term, last 4 years, to go to the UNSM and FCM. I think that money could be spent well at some other places. That would actually take 3 cents off the rate if nobody went, which I don't suggest. But at 3 cents per hundred, that's a huge amount of money savings to the taxpayer of Argyle. I can certainly see that, Councillor D'Entremont, I will name him, our deputy warden, when he came back with the info about I call it the green money, the money that was for the sewer system in Pubnico. That was a huge saving to the municipality. But I think that 2 people can go to these conferences and bring the same thing back. I think if we send people there that's going to be responsible and go and do attend the meeting, don't just go to the meals or just go there for the fun of it. And I'm not accusing anybody, but I've been told some instances where some people didn't show up except the meals and the banquet. Anyhow, I'm not going to name anybody. I think that money can be well spent in our municipality, and I would suggest that money be put in to say on the tax rate. Times again are hard, things are tough. Look at how many people are behind in their taxes, and I think we should show leadership. We should show leadership at this table, and show that we are responsible, and that we want to make a difference to the taxpayers. So myself, I would vote no. That everybody goes to the FCM, the UNSM, I think is a great thing. It's in our own province. There's a lot of things there that affect us on a daily basis. UNSM, I'd be prepared if everybody wants to go, or whatever the case may be. But myself, I would only vote for 2 to go to the FCM per year, and I would adopt the new Glasgow form of doing it by draw. And I guess that's my opinion, and again, we should show leadership.
Thank you. Deputy Warden?
Thank you, Warden D'Entremont. Just wondering if, and I guess I agree with both opinions in one way or the other, but I'm just wondering if we had chose a certain number, how would it look as far as expenses? Would we pay for travel? Would we keep the same policy as far as, the traveling? I mean, if you look through, certain units have different, policies when it comes to the travel and all that. And at the end of the day, what would be the difference, as far as moolah, I know it's hard to answer that question, but,
I'm not sure I'm assuming that was for me, but the...
It was for you,
okay.
yes.
It sounded money. But sorry, I didn't catch the first part of that.
Right now, our policy,
Right.
we have to pay for our own travel. We get reimbursed $750. Some other units, they pay for all the travel.
Yeah.
If you go into Vancouver, for example, the travel to Vancouver can be very costly, right? So maybe 2 or 3 going to Vancouver would cost more than the actual 4 or 5 going with the current policy that we have. Would we stick to this policy? Would we change the policy? I guess that's...
Okay. If I understand your question, is that we already have a bit of a restriction in the policy that says you can't be reimbursed more than $750 for travel. Now that travel includes your drive to Halifax and your flight to X, wherever you're going.
Yeah.
So for that, and I mean, I think we've all traveled to Halifax, and if you get reimbursed on mileage, it's a little over $200. So
Right.
$200 is gone off that amount. So you have 550 to work with on a flight. Generally speaking, if it's in Toronto or locally, you're probably break even. But if it's obviously if it's in Halifax, it benefited you to have the 750. But if in Vancouver, you certainly fell behind. So what it does is it smooths the cost, and that was the intent of it. I wasn't here, but I'm sure that was the intent of it, to smooth the cost, so regardless of where you went, it would be the same approximate cost for the FCM. The UNSM doesn't have that component to it. That's just a straight up mileage reimbursement. So they are different in the way that we treat them financially.
Thank you.
Your point is well taken. It would, depending on where it's located, it could cost less to send more.
And then, you know, if you get picked, and I just, you know, and if it's in Vancouver, again, just using Vancouver as an example, you may not be able to go because of, you know, financial reasons, because of work, because of, you know, so if it's the current policy, right? The way it is now, people can choose if they want to go or not, right? So it's up to you.
Yeah.
You know, anyway,
Yeah.
just throwing that out there.
Okay. Councilor Albright.
I just was thinking that kind of along the same lines as you. I was kind of curious what it would look like financially if we, you know, stayed along the same policy or not. And as Councillor LeBlanc said, I think that the professional development is important, especially for new councillors, for sure. But do I need to go every year is what I question, as Councillor Surratt said as well. I did hear it a lot when I was campaigning. It was an issue that came up a lot. And people in my area saw it as a perk. And it was negatively looked upon, especially the FCM. That is kind of what I'm concerned about.
Thank you. Jonathan?
To follow up on some of the comments, I mean, that's the one that's looked at, like when you're out campaigning, they bring that up. But we also have to remember, we're dealing with taxpayers' money. We have hundreds of thousands going to Waste Check, the Airport Corp, our medical centers. All these people, the people that work at these go to conferences. We don't regulate, govern that. AMA is a conference that the staff go to. We don't look at that on an annual basis on who goes and what it costs. Recreation has a conference that several people go to. I'm sure other staff members in the municipality go to conferences and conventions to do with their work. We're not scrutinized that. So it seems like every year we're nitpicking over the same little thing, and it's you know, it makes headlines or it makes the news. So, but I still stand by my motion, and I respect what you said, Guy. But if I have to draw a hat, more than likely I'm going to pick one I can't go to. I mean, same with him and Calvin and Junior, and I would rather take and as I pointed out before, like nobody goes every year, year after year. Some go more than others, and but I can't see where it's ever been abused far as if you look at the number of people that go. And some, like Councilor Surratt, just principle, he don't go, but it's that's his choice.
Thank you. LeBlanc?
A question directed to our CAO. Is Councillor Surratt correct in saying that in the past 4-year term, the FCM has cost the municipality $100,000?
It was all conferences.
All conferences. Sorry, I thought we were just talking the FCM.
Council conferences or all conferences?
I thought we were speaking specifically the FCM, sorry.
In the document that I presented, now keep in mind that's 3 years, not 4. The FCM, the FCM was 37,000 and change, just slightly over 37. So on average, I guess divide that by 3. It's just, you know, probably what, 12,000 a year, 12,500 a year. I will note that the FCM was in Halifax in 2011, and there's never been more participation to the FCM than it was in Halifax. So
I have to correct you on that, and you can correct me too. Would Whistler BC the Olympics? Didn't everybody go? Was it just myself and Councilor?
I was not
No.
present.
But there's another year that one went.
Yeah, yeah, I don't recall how many there were for that
Yeah.
year.
Quebec City one went.
Yeah, that was, I think, 2009.
Yeah, anyway.
'Cause the
Okay.
Olympics would have been 08?
Oh, nine, the first year was here.
When was the Olympics, 2008?
You're right, 08.
08, 'cause every 4 years.
First year.
Okay, I don't recall how many were there. That
That was
goes
before
beyond
the
that.
Olympics. Okay.
Sorry. The UNSM, based on this, was 40,000. And last year, there was a significantly higher number that went to the fall UNSM of 2012 than the past couple of years. Although we typically get between 4 and 6 people that includes staff that consider going each year. Now, in that particular instance, that might actually be in our backyard, but in some
Yeah.
cases, it's in
Yeah.
Sydney. So that's the breakdown of the costs that are in front of you. It's 37,000 for FCM and 40 for the UNSM over the 3 years.
Yeah.
Not per year,
Okay.
over the 3 years.
Councillor Muse.
I think as members of the council, we have to be, we have to be, looking for the word, but
Prudent.
well, prudent, and if we stay the same, if we keep the policy the same, I think we have to be responsible enough to know that it doesn't, we don't all have to go anyway. Like as a group, we should be mature enough and professional enough to know that if it's going to cost X number of dollars, that we can decide among ourselves that maybe we shouldn't all go. Now, when you're talking about the 750, is that just for travel? You still get your meals, you still get your expenses,
Yes, you.
minus your travel.
You get, the hotel is paid for by the municipality,
Yes?
which is typically paid for directly, so it
Right.
wouldn't, so, the meals are definitely included as well in that calculation, so the 750 does not, I should clarify.
Include your meals.
The 750 is only for travel.
So when you say it only costs $750, it's not right. I mean, because
Correct.
there's a lot more expense
A lot of-
incurred.
A lot of the meals are included in the registration fee, so you don't
that are
collect for
included
those.
anyway. Okay.
You don't collect for those. There's not a lot of meals on a 3-day convention. Most of them are included in.
They're included in the
but
conference.
the municipality pays the registration fee for the
Yes.
convention, of course.
See, some of the comments that I'd heard, and not just when I was campaigning, I heard a lot, and I go back to the Vancouver one, because I heard a lot of comments then, and the comments that I would hear is, when it's that far away, it's an opportunity for them to travel, they all want to go. Have that conference here, nobody wants to go. You know what I mean? This is comments. I'm not saying that happens.
Yeah.
But these were the comments that I would hear, you know. If there's no benefit for them, then they're not going to bother. But if there's a way to get away, then they're going to do it. But I think we have to be responsible enough, and I think we should be able to keep the policy the way it is, and be responsible enough to know and to treat it in a way that it's not going to cost the municipality, any more than
Anymore,
it has
yeah.
to.
Thank you.
Sorry, just, the question was asked, does the 750 include everything? The answer is absolutely, it does not. The average cost for the FCM is $2,500 per person, per participant. That includes registration, travel, meals, everything. I said registration, hotels, et cetera. So the meals that are reimbursed are the meals that are not part of the program, that you have to pay on your own. Those are the ones that are reimbursed. And there's, and that's basically, the 2,500 is all inclusive
Yeah.
per counselor.
Councillor Murphy, your turn again.
No, they've covered it.
Okay.
Somebody else already said the same thing. Question on the motion.
Deputy Warden.
Just one more thing. Whichever way we decide, what I would like to see is, and again, you know, on Councilor Muse's point about, you know, being accountable to our people here in the municipality, is I'd like to see, if you go to a conference, I want to see a report, a written report, where you can, you know, come to council and report to council, so the people who weren't there, you know, at least have an idea. I mean, you're not going to talk for an hour on this, but you're going to be accountable, and you're going to, you know, maybe the highlights of what you've, you know, which session you took in, what information, especially information that is, you know, for our municipality. Some of the topics are about big city stuff, which, you know, don't usually come into play here in Argyle, but there's a lot of things that do come into play in Argyle. And I would like to see a report from every councillor who makes it to the conference. I know the CAO usually reports, but that's what I would like to see. I don't know if we can put that in the policy, if we can put that in the motion, or if just the honor system, but that's what I would like to see.
If you go and you don't report, then next year you can't go. Maybe.
That's what that
Councillor Albright?
agenda's for, the Board of Councilors.
Yeah. Councillor Albright?
I think that's a great suggestion as part of, you know, the professionalism of what we're doing here, you know, and being responsible. And just to add to what Councillor Donaldson had said about, you know, every year we get nitpicky about this after an election, I think it's because we have control of that decision, whereas in other areas, like I work for the government as well, I'm a teacher, I can't decide what conferences I attend or not, but see, we have the power to decide that, and I think that's why, and being new, I feel that pressure and that squeeze as to, okay, we have to speak about this, you know, being new.
Again, you also mentioned, but the numbers don't prove.
But the numbers are a lot less, to be honest, than what I would have thought they were. I'm glad we have
Most
this.
heavily attended ones are the ones that are close, like FCM's, like,
Yeah.
I've never gone, it's been in St. John's twice, I've never gone. But I mean, you get Moncton or Halifax, people gonna go. But,
It doesn't cost you any more.
I think if people saw this.
You get so much for traveling, and that's it.
No, you're right.
I should also note, and I guess this is for the record for everyone to understand, is that under no circumstances do the spouses are invited to attend as part of the UNSM and the FCM, and under no circumstances do are their costs incurred by the taxpayers. They
banquets, whatever, we pay for our own.
every-
We pay for their tickets.
everything.
Yes, yeah.
That's correct. It's a separate cost, and it's not incurred by the municipality. It's incurred by the person.
And there's no alcohol billing.
Okay, we had a call for a vote, but Councillor Surratt had his light on, so.
Again, I just like to, I appreciate what everybody has said. I guess maybe to answer Councillor LeBlanc, it about rounds off to about $50,000, the FCM, in the last 4 years. And I really honestly do believe that it's a perk, and only 2 people should go. 2 people can report to this council, the same as if 8 or 9 go. And, you know, I think we should show responsibility to our taxpayers. And on answering Councillor Donaldson, which was a good point, we seem the councillors to nitpick here, but if you're going door to door, which like I did and a lot of the other councillors did in the last election, I tell you what, the nitpicking comes from out there. You want to go out there during an election year, and you have, Councillor Donaldson, and I've heard my share. I've heard at the garage enough. Every year it comes up. And thanks to CJLS or the Vanguard, put it on there. But anyhow, it is put on there, and it is perceived as a perk, and I see it as a perk. And I think that money can be better spent in our municipality to help the taxpayers or to put our tax rate down. And that's it.
I know one thing, you should be at least 2, because you have a lot of the conferences, a lot of the meetings are concurrent, running at the same time, 2 different ones, so you know you can split, but you have to be at least 2 really to get the full value. You have a motion on the floor? And could somebody repeat the motion? I think it's to,
The status quo, I think that's what he said.
yes, okay?
And
Just so everybody's clear. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay, and could it be marked down?
Yeah. Motion's carried.
just as a follow-up, Mr. Warden, I don't know if council wishes to make a motion or to determine the whole reporting structure around these conferences. Deputy Warden Dotsremo made a point that seemed to be agreeable to the group. I don't know if it's too late to kind of throw it into a policy, but if it's something that council wishes to address, now would be a good time to address that, if that's the will of council.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take notes, but I'm not gonna do a written formal report, and I'll read my notes at the next meeting where it says report of councils.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna do a report that's gonna be filed on file. That's my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
but I will report back like I usually do.
Yeah. Well, we need, one thing we're gonna need is more reporting when we go out, you know. Not only FCM, on all kinds of conferences and meetings and anybody else? Yes?
Yes, I certainly agree. I'd like to address what Councillor Dotsremo said, and so did Councillor Albright, I would say he called it, and Councillor Muse. I agree with that. I think it's important that we bring something from our, whether it be a conference or a meeting. But I do believe, like Councillor Donaldson, that there is a place in our agenda that says Councillor's report, and I think that's fine, you know.
Yeah.
And just leave it to ourselves to do the reporting. I think that's great. I think, like we all said, we're all responsible people, and, you know, we're expected to do that.
Thank you.
I can sit here and say that I can't be accused of not attending the funds, or attending the sessions when I'm at these conferences, so I can hold my head high on that.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
I'd like to think we're all elected officials, and there's a reason why we've been voting in by our community, and maybe it's my naivety, but I'd like to think we're all responsible and we'll all use the honor system when it comes to this.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. We may visit that at a later date anyway, during the annual conference about reporting and stuff. Municipal boundary review, that's another item.
I can get started on this. Staff has put together an executive summary, I guess, on the municipal boundary reviews. This was a notice of motion at the last meeting, and what we gathered from the discussion and the direction we received from council wasn't unanimous in terms of how we were going to approach this. But what we did was we rather than go down the road of guessing who did what or whatever, we basically looked at a couple of principles relating to the municipal boundary review. Number one, there was conversations around council saying, well, are we really the best people to make that decision in terms of council boundary, well, for number of councillors? Some, I think, would say, well, you know, we don't have that expertise necessarily, and perhaps there's transparency issues around us doing it directly. That, I'm just quoting some of the council's comments at the committee of the whole. So what we did was we looked at terms, and of course the direction was to bring up a terms of reference to give an idea to council how it wishes to proceed. Now, basically, what we're suggesting in this document is that if council wishes, it could consider an independent group of people in order to establish the number of councillors for the municipality. What we say in this document is that we indicate that there would be 9 people, 1 from each district. Made sense at the time when you consider it under the lens of I guess, boundaries or districts that we currently have. There's pros and cons to this approach, and so we have brought to your attention what we believed to be where council was leaning in our discussions. but forgive us if we didn't get it exactly right, because there's a variety of ways this can be done and should probably be debated. So what we did was give you something to debate. So we have 9 people, non-councillors, that would rely on the resources of staff to establish to establish public hearings and to prepare a survey that would be distributed amongst as many people as it made sense to. And so they would lead the public process along with staff, and then at some point in time, they would make a recommendation. And the discussion we had, a small group of staff had a discussion about this, and it's very difficult for an independent group to determine the boundaries. And so, because there's a lot of history around certain boundaries, and the history is in some way captured by reports of the past, but the independent group may or may not have that information at their disposal. And so, where I think the independent group could bring a sense of I guess, independence to the decision, we also have to be aware that there are pros and cons to that kind of arrangement, right? And the pros, of course, is that they would see it as more transparent, that council isn't actually selecting for themselves, but ultimately council will make the recommendation anyway. So it is council's decision to make. So the independent group will provide you a recommendation, and if you're going to go down that route, you have to be prepared to accept that recommendation. I think we saw that when that doesn't happen, the independence of the group becomes a little suspect. I don't know where that happened before, but I'm just saying. So there's an independent. It gives you an independent perspective. And it may alleviate some of the biases that the community might think you have. It also it provides an entirely community focus, right? So there's no council focus, but that has its downside as well. That if you are now some of the new councillors and those that have been here a long time recognize the amount of work that's required of a councillor, and that's not generally recognized. And so where, we talked about stipend, we talked about a bunch of things. In the background are a lot of meetings, a lot of reading, a lot of decision making, a lot of research, a lot of things that for those of you that are new are just starting to see and go, oh, okay. And then there's also the community events that you're expected to attend as you're representing your community. So it can be a wide task, and so you will be in a good position to understand how many councillors are required in order to effectively do that work. So it's not just about community representation, it's also about governance for the organization. So there are some drawbacks to actually giving this decision to an independent group. You certainly lose control of the decision in a lot of ways, which can be good or bad, depending on how you feel about that. And you will definitely feel forced to accept a decision that comes from the community, even if you believe it's wrong. And so you have to kind of measure the pros and cons. I think there's always, I have to remind council, there is always a public component to this decision, always. It doesn't have to be an independent commission that makes the decision, but there is always a public consultation and input in this. And so I am not discouraging that, because that's the law. It must happen and it should happen. But I guess I just wanted to, rather than present you what the document that's attached, to give you some of the history around some of the decisions you may want to debate. And because it is certainly, we will be asking this group to do a lot of work in a short period of time. And so we have to understand what our expectations of this group would be as well. We felt that it was best that they only chose the number of councillors, because I think doing the entire thing is a large piece of work that really should be done at least partially by council. It is, when we did it 6 years ago, it is a long process. You bang out options, it goes back and forth, it comes back, and to ask an independent public group to do that, you might have some pushback.
Yeah.
It's be very time consuming on their part. You also have the option of engaging your planning advisory committee, which is a council and resident citizen body. And so it is in a lot of ways a planning document, and is in a lot of ways influenced by planners. So that might be another option to your disposal, to rely on the combination of citizen and council to kind of iron out some of these issues. So I hope I didn't confuse the issue more,
No.
but I just think that there are elements that council ought to debate about this terms of reference. We did not do this terms of reference as an absolute recommendation for council. We did it as an example of something we felt was, that might have been the approach that council was looking at.
Councillor Muse?
Just a question, how, when you're looking at selecting an independent body, how would you choose the people that would sit on this? And also, especially if you're looking for one from each district, right? And then another thing too is an independent, for an independent group that doesn't, and you just mentioned, doesn't know what else. I mean, a lot of people out there think that we come to 2 meetings a month, and that's all we do. Or one, because that's the only one that they see on TV, you know. But there is a lot more to it than that. There's other functions, there's other meetings to attend, which they may not be aware of. And for them to come out and say, well, this can be done with 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever numbers they come up with, would it be justifiable, like, to take their recommendation if we felt as a council that no, we can't handle it with that, because I mean, with 9, how many committees are we on? And if we reduce to, and they come back with the recommendation that you got to have 5, and then when are we as a body of 5 going to have time to attend all the committees that we have to and whatever? I'm just saying that with having someone out there that doesn't realize what else is involved, you would almost have to be very selective and know people who recognize what the council is comprised of and the duties that we have, I guess. You'd have to be very careful in how you select an independent committee, I think.
And of course, this independent committee would probably, I assume, interview the councillors too, and maybe some of the staff.
Yes.
So they will get some input, if we chose to go that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely the plan. Yeah.
Councillor Muse actually addressed, other than, do we have a proposition on how we choose the 9 individuals? Or is
Well,
that not yet
I
debated?
think 9 is too many, really, yeah.
Or whatever amount?
Yeah.
Is there?
No, there's
No,
no
okay.
selection process, nor do we have a policy that would guide us in that selection process. We've done that a number of different ways. Typically, we advertise, but sometimes that doesn't necessarily provide you with a lot of interest. Not everybody, you advertise in a paper, and not everybody has that paper, so they don't get the opportunity, and they feel like they were ignored. And you could go to community-based organizations and say, we'd like to have a volunteer selected from your group. That's another option. I guess the downside of 9 is it's very difficult to find 9 people that will do this type of work. I mean, the Independent Commission for the Province of Nova Scotia wasn't 9. What was it, 5 or 6, 7, 6, 7.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's,
There were 9.
was it
There
9?
were 9, yeah.
Okay, 9 for the entire province.
Oh, yeah.
So we're looking at 9 for Argyle. So it is a little heavy, and it also assumes that you're going to maintain. It makes a certain assumption about maintaining the districts that you have, and that may not be the interest of council. And so you've selected 9 people to make a decision about the region, and you might actually have selected 9 people who are going to fight to keep 9. And so that may or may not be the intent of council. In fact, I think the intent is probably to reduce, so you have to be careful about the amount of people you choose. And the selection process, I would suggest that it's done, that it would not be restricted to an advertisement in the paper, that it would be that and something else in order to get the right people involved. and the right mix. And so,
Yeah.
you know, if you look at a geographic perspective, 9 makes sense, but if you look at an experience perspective, 9 may not be your number at all. So it really depends on the lens you choose to use.
Yeah.
And if you want the independent council to do the work for you in the first place. And I mean, you know,
Or do you want a mix of independent and councillors or something? Well, if you had this independent committee, you wouldn't have anybody from staff with them, or
as advisors only.
just yeah, right.
We would do the work. So
Yeah,
we would,
yeah.
like, if there's a survey to be done, we would do
Yeah.
that for
Okay,
the group.
thank you. Murphy? Okay. Oh, Surratt.
You go, you little bugger. I guess, hearing some of the comments around the table, I'm looking at Barrington with 5 councillors. They covered 1,398 people per councillor. If I look at the municipality of Yarmouth, they have 7 councillors and they cover 1,443 people. And the last 4 years that I've known most of the councillors, they've been able to do their jobs no problem at all. And they have as many meetings and committees and stuff like that as we have. So I can't see it being a problem when I see, you know, the other units functioning with a lesser amount of councillors. I'm looking at Clare with 8 councillors. They have 1,039. And when you average Argyle, we're at 917 apiece. So, you know, there's room for us to go down. Again, what that number is, I'm not here to say that number, because I think an independent panel would be the right way to go. Because I know if I had to pick what boundary or how many councillors, I know I would fight tooth and nail to keep what I've got, and that's the way I am, that's in my blood, I guess, right or wrong. So being somebody independent makes a lot more sense. Whether that be 9, 5, I guess, it's a good point. I was thinking 9 was, hey, great, 9 district, 9 people, but now that I've heard around the table, I think, yeah, that's maybe 5, maybe whatever, maybe a councillor in there, which I totally personally disagreed at first. Maybe it is whatever everybody here wants to talk about and think is right. I agree with that. I believe that the time frame, which I know, I'll add that you put this together, it's not written in stone.
No.
The time frame is very, very tight.
The time frame that I'm proposing
That you
there,
propose, who is
I
impossible.
don't think we'll achieve that. I think it's probably a couple of months more that we would require to do this. 'Cause
If not more.
I think if you
Yeah.
made a decision on this today, we might be able to get to that deadline, but I don't think that
Yes.
that's gonna
Then
happen.
you
It
put
doesn't
some,
have to be done then.
no,
No,
that's right.
It's
we're
not
right.
that
Yeah.
A
basic.
year and a half, or,
Yeah, we do have time. I mean,
Yeah.
that's an aggressive time frame that's in that, and I would suggest that the actual time frame can be expanded for sure. Correct.
Really.
yeah.
But there's no question, yeah, there's no question at all. If I can finish, there's no question at all, though, what we heard when this first came up at the council table here before the elections, that the public out there is looking at less councillors. There's no, don't know what that number is again, but you know, that's the feeling, and going door to door. There's not, that's one thing that I really heard from a lot of people was, you know, don't you think your numbers are too high for the amount of people you cover compared to other districts? And you know, so I'm certainly interested in seeing how we can proceed with this and what the wish of council is. And certainly, I think what has been brought out by the CAO and staff and some of the staff, I think is a great piece of work, and I think it certainly has my recommendations.
Recommendation?
As I think it's a good idea
Independent?
to be independent, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My turn? Boy, yeah, I'm on the opposite side of you every issue tonight.
That's all right.
Having gone through this several times, the last time we presented, no matter what we present, it's up to the Utility and Review Board to accept it, whether we leave it the same or reduce or add. There's no guarantee they're gonna accept it.
That's right.
I feel there's a lot more important issues to be done or going on than this right now. And the last time we presented it, we presented status quo, and it was based on community of interest. Our geographical layout is so hard to draw different districts than what they already are, because we're primarily islands and peninsulas. Barrington is getting overworked with 5. They've gone too low, and it was easy to do. They got Route 3. They chopped it in 3 pieces, took Cape Island and chopped it in half, so I gave them 5. They got no inland roads. They got no peninsulas, so it was very easy for them to make an all one culture. So it was very easy for them to draw boundaries. Personally, I represent the majority of the Anglophone communities. I'm not interested in seeing that chopped up. So I say present status quo in 2014. If they come back, the Utility and Review Board tells us to change, then we got 2 years to change it. But I'm not going to be volunteering information to the province. At this point, I'm sticking with status quo. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
And I don't hear none of what you're hearing about too many councillors. I've never heard it before. I could probably ask half the people and they wouldn't even know how many.
Yeah, I haven't heard it either when I was campaigning, but. Deputy Warden?
You know, this is obviously a complex issue that we're talking about, and we were talking about streamlining, and again, you know, we don't know the number, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, whatever.
We're not here to debate the number.
And, but I think the councils that have streamlined the numbers, I think they've also looked at their workload and their different committees that they sat on. Probably some of them have been, you know, axed, you know, so you know, whatever the number is, we'll have to tweak the council with their responsibilities and stuff. So, but anyway, it'll be an interesting process, and I think at this point we should probably move on.
So, what is the wish of council?
Wish of council, I think that we should leave it as, like Donaldson was saying, status quo. Let the URB decide, and we move on with the rest of this council meeting. Leave it as it is, let the URB, or we'll discuss it again at a later date, but I make that motion, that we leave it as it is right now and let the URB decide if we're gonna stay at 9, go to 5, or go to 2. It's up to them, because it's gonna be up to them at the end.
That is a motion, you're making that a motion?
Yes, I am.
And secondary, discussion?
I'd like to, sorry, if I may, I'd like to point out a couple things. Regardless of what the UARB decides, we require to produce a report. And so the report can recommend status quo, but regardless of what the recommendation is, it has to identify the reasoning and logic behind 9, or whatever the number that council ends up choosing. I mean, obviously, 9 was there for a reason in the past because of the population and how it's. I mean, Councilor Donaldson explained it very properly in terms of like how the community is divided, and so whatever you look to do, the boundaries. If you don't do status quo, the boundaries will likely change and change significantly. So what council needs to be prepared to do is to determine what those boundaries look like and what impacts it will have on your respective communities. So it isn't just about reducing councillors, it's about reducing councillors and then determining where your new community of interest is. So that comes with a lot of work, no question, especially if you look to reduce the councils. If you don't, then the work is a little bit simpler in terms of a planning, because we then look at communities of interest, and obviously they haven't, you know, unless they've changed significantly, that might not be a big change. and then we look at whether or not the districts are representing an equitable amount of people. So there's 5 or 6 things that we would drive, but a report must be produced by us, and it must be presented to the UARB, and it must have a public component. Those are the 3 things that as staff, we must do for you. So regardless of your decision in terms of numbers, you may not be in the position to make that decision today. We've presented an option. We're happy to do what council wants. So the terms of reference that is included it's all you. We will do whatever council wishes. But I wanted to make sure you understood that regardless of status quo or not, a report must be done, and it is a process.
Councilor Surratt.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So I'm going to tell Councilor Murphy that he probably didn't realize that the report had to be brought up. I guess answering back to what Councilor Murphy said, I believe that as a council, we should be proactive. Those that have not heard that the amount of councillors too high, too low, too high, I don't know where you guys are living at. But certainly you're not living in the municipality of Argyle, because let me tell you, there's been a lot of talk, and either you're turning a blind eye or you're not hearing, and I know it's not only in Tuscan, because I've talked to people from Pubnico, Argyle, and they come to the garage, and I don't bring it up. I don't make a point of bringing it up. It is brought up. How many of you are there anyhow? You're too many. When are you going to cut down? How many people do you represent? I mean, I hear this, not every day, but I bet you not a month goes by that I don't hear 2 or 3 times. I think council has to be proactive. We have to show that we are responsible, that we should, that less councillors can do the job. Is it 8? Is it 7? Is it 6, 5? I don't know. This is why an independent committee should be formed, because you know what? We will never agree around this table, because we are going to look out for ourselves, and there's nothing wrong with that. I try to look out after myself also, but we also all look out for the taxpayers too. I know we do, but we'll never agree unless we have an independent body out there that goes out and has a look at what the community wants. We have to have this report anyhow. I think we should move forward on this sooner than later, because if we let it drag till 2014, we still have it, so we're not running at the last minute doing things, and 2 years goes by very fast. I really believe that if we go out there, listen to the people, we can make an informed decision, and I think council should really think about this. Doing nothing is not an option as far as I'm concerned. We have to do something, and do something now. Thank you.
Thank you. Donaldson?
Okay. If the motion does pass, you already have a lot of the information based on the last one. You
Yes.
just have to have public meetings, change the date.
It would be, a lot of the information would be similar, yes. We would use the 2006 report as a basis we would obviously update it for the current census information. We have had shifts in population.
And another thing I'd like to bring up for the new councillors in particular is we done this, a year before the last election. We looked at different scenarios. And if you keep West Pumlico, for an example, is a community of interest with one councillor, then you have to juggle the numbers to give the remaining councillors that number of population. And if I remember, Guy, you was dead against it because you ended up from Morse Island to Plymouth, right? Taking in all of Tuscan and part of Plymouth, and Wedgeport and Little River and Comoes Hill became one district. All of East Pumlico right up into Eelbrook became a district. So if you're going to keep Pumlico and Wedgeport as a community of interest, you're going to have great big districts that aren't community of interest with the remaining councillors. That's the way I see it. And I'm not willing at this point to give up my community of interest, Guy. That's the way I see it.
Thank you.
So I will fight for that. That's Nothing against you.
Lee, you want to speak?
Yes, as I've said, and you've proven the point, Councillor Donaldson, we will fight tooth and nail to the end, and we will never decide here, because we will fight for our own place. This is why it has to be an independent commission, independent of this council, because we will fight tooth and nail for our own district. And I agree with what you're saying. That's why you're starting already to say, there's Pubnico is going to be like this is going to be like this. Again, we're here starting to point at different places to be like this and that. Let's get an independent commission, bring a report, because Councillor, CAO, Councillor has doesn't need, it's not binding what they find, right? When an independent commission would go out there, it is not binding. Is it when it comes to council, then we make the final?
Council can make a different decision.
Yes.
Can take
Yeah.
a different direction than the independent commission can. But I think
So-
you want to be careful around what that might look like.
Because we're back to where we are now.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel that this has to be an independent and started now, because if we keep on dragging this, the first thing again, 2014, the same pickle, everybody fighting for their own place. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Muse?
I don't think that we should be making a decision at this point to say we're not going to we're just going to recommend that we stay the same. I think we need to look at things, and I would say that we have a little more time, maybe up to the next meeting, to look at this and think about it, rather than make a quick decision now saying, no, we're not gonna, we're gonna leave everything the way it is. I don't believe that we've got enough information. I don't feel that I have enough information to make that decision tonight, to say that, no, we should stay with 9 and not, and recommend status quo. I think we need a little more time, and I think we should take the time. I mean, we have 2 years. It's not as if we have to make that decision tonight or in the next month. And I feel that we should at least discuss this at another time.
That's a very good discussion tonight.
We've had a good
It's
discussion.
it's a good start.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No. Okay. Donaldson?
Yeah, my point was whether we recommend to leave it the same, whether we decide amongst ourselves to pick a lower number and work on the boundaries in the next little while, have an independent commission do it for us and accept their recommendation. It still has to go to the Public Utility and Review Board, and there's no guarantee that they're going to accept any one of the scenarios that we give them. So they may come back with a totally different idea for us. So to me, we're just going to be wasting a lot of time until we know that the province wants us to reduce our numbers. I don't feel there's the public pressure within the municipality telling me to reduce the numbers.
I think you're totally wrong.
Well, that's,
You're blind.
they bring it up to me if it was an issue. Okay, that's my issue. So I'm letting my motion stand and let the public and utility review boards decide what they want to do with us.
Okay. With questions called for? All those in favor of the motion,
Just to make sure that everybody's clear on the motion, just because there's been a lot of discussion.
yes, the motion is to
Status quo until, and presented to the public and utility.
remain 9 districts.
Well, I guess 9 districts, yeah.
To remain 9 districts, right? Okay? I heard the motion, all
But we
those,
still have to, by the way, we still have to have this report, though. Right?
yes,
We
yes,
have no
yeah,
choice.
yeah.
So are
Regard,
you saying that we don't have a report?
No.
Sorry.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Motion defeated. So do you want to table this for the next meeting, for our council committee of the whole? The end of the month?
I would say that it may not be a bad idea to have that, bring it up again, and maybe, I would like a little more time to think about whether or not we do it that way. I'm like Councilor Surratt. I heard in my campaign, that was some of the things that I heard about being too many. Are we going to reduce? Not a whole lot of that, but I did hear it.
Thank you. Deputy Warden.
I think we've had a lot to digest here tonight, and there's a lot of good information on both sides, and you know, frankly, there's things popping up in my head that I hadn't thought about, you know, so I think it's a good idea to maybe digest it for a few more weeks, maybe go out and talk to the people in your area and see what they have to say. I think I'm going to have to, you know, I didn't campaign, I didn't have the luxury of campaigning. Yeah, that's right, yeah. And so I'd like to get a chance to go out and ask a few of the people in my community. I have a bank of people that I, you know, bounce things off, and they usually bounce it back to me. So I'd like to have the chance, and then maybe in the next meeting, you know, we can discuss it again.
These people are pretty honest with you.
Very honest.
Surratt?
Just to add to Councillor Dortmund and Councillor Muse, I agree with it. There's a lot of stuff that we've spoke about tonight, and to, you know, to digest and to check back into it and read what staff and the CEO has brought up to us. And yes, come to our next meeting, put it back on the agenda. I think it would be a great thing.
And I'll ask this question generally of council, and I mean, obviously it's council that's going to direct staff, or at least the CAO, in terms of what kind of information that you would require. Based on the discussion tonight, I would suspect that some of the information that you may want to see includes obviously the current boundaries. We also looked at 5, the boundaries of 5. So for those of you who weren't here, it might be useful for you to see how those boundaries were drawn. And this discussion and debate, I'm suggesting to council, there is not an extreme rush to this. We're moving at the speed that we feel council wants to be placing on this. In our view, we do have quite a bit of time, and what council has to decide in terms of your community of interest is what is the balance, because you have a balance to achieve here. You reduce your council, and you are significant. The more reductions you make, the more influence that you have on your community of interest, and we've seen how upsetting that can be at the provincial level. So where you have heard from the community about the reduction and how many or too many, and there's also, I think, a school of thought out there that says, I don't want to lose my representation. Right. And so there needs to be some balance in that, and so I think it ought to be debated in more than one meeting. That's just that's my opinion of council. Yeah. To council, it's ultimately your debate, but that's my opinion on this. And obviously, if we bring it up to the committee of the whole, we'll have more information for you. We'll focus less on independent versus, because you've kind of seen that option. You'll absorb that a little bit, and we'll bring some of the information that was shared at the time we looked at it before the election of 2012.
Yes, Danny.
Just a question. There was a motion there for the status quo. Mm-hmm. It was defeated. Are we restricting ourselves? Can we bring that motion again at some point?
We can bring that motion for reconsideration,
even though it was defeated here.
Yeah, it was defeated. It was defeated because you weren't ready to make that decision.
Okay.
Maybe in hindsight, you should have tabled that.
Yeah, exactly.
But you can go to reconsider this. However, there's a function. There's a specific way you do it. You give notice to the council that you wish to reconsider. That notice, I believe, has to be at least 1 week. And if you give notice, that motion can be brought up for reconsideration if the majority of council agrees. If there is no notice, pardon me?
For 2/3.
If there's notice, it's 50%.
Right.
If there's notice, it's majority. If there is no notice, if Councillor Surratt Councillor Donaldson wants to rediscuss this issue at the next meeting and does not give any notice, 2/3 of you have to agree to have the discussion.
Right.
The discussion.
To have the discussion, yeah.
To reconsider, right?
Yeah.
Now, how the vote goes is entirely up to council, but that's how you bring it back up, and you can do that.
Okay.
But, I mean, I guess in fairness, that the proper thing, in hindsight, may have been to have tabled this motion, because the issue you've raised is now it looks like you don't want status quo, and that's not necessarily the case. It's basically that you're not ready to make that decision. So I don't know if an amendment can be is in order at this point. I think we leave it the way it is.
Amendment to the motion's already passed.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
you could, you know, you'd have to reconsider it, you'd have to have 2/3 agreement. I think we were best to let it pass.
Yeah.
And in the committee of the whole, I suspect that if there is a reconsideration, that there will be proper notice.
I just suggested this community, the committee of the whole. Is that what you people want? Are you going to be ready in 2 weeks' time or 3 weeks' time or?
If
Yeah,
there's more
okay.
information there that the staff or the CEO can bring up, if not, then we'll wait till the next meeting after that. We're not in a panic, but, you know,
Yeah.
as you dig up information,
Yeah,
maps and that.
yeah, we'll
that-
bring it
that
up.
to me would be-
We'll bring it up whenever.
Would sound good to me. Well, who was in a panic? You said in the motion.
What we'll do, what, I'll tell you what staff will do and what they won't do. We won't be identifying scenarios of 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Like, we won't be doing that. There's not enough time. But we will look at the 5 that we looked at before the election. We'll provide the information to the new council as well as the old council.
Yeah.
And so we'll bring that to your attention. And of course, it gives you a chance to go into your communities and start talking about what this might look like. I think, you know, the concerns that I'm hearing at this level, I might be beating this to death. The concerns I'm hearing at this level suggest that council wants some engagement in this decision. So you have to be, you know, this whole independent commission, I think what you've debated yourself in or out of, you have to understand that it sounds like you want to be definitely directly involved in this decision. And you can use the public in a different way than is proposed at the terms of reference, but we'll leave that to the committee of the whole or future meeting for that decision.
Yeah.
But based on the discussion, that's just my observation, that you seem pretty engaged on the topic.
Okay, thank you.
We were.
Next item is the School Street property. I don't think there's any update on that. We
Nothing
don't
to
have any
report.
update at all on that. Warden's report, very straightforward. Not a lot to read there. I was on vacation.
For once.
Councilor's reports. Anybody wants to report? Over the holidays?
I can't report on the keel because I was fishing and I missed the last meeting, so I'm just checking LNs. Is there anything in there on it?
I think you have.
I had nothing,
No.
nothing to
No.
report
Is
on
there
Nikhil.
anybody here that can update?
There were, last meeting we reviewed it over here. Then we were
Oh.
here at our meeting, at our last meeting.
Yes.
And we
Yeah,
Okay.
but Richard wasn't at this meeting
Yeah.
either, yeah.
Right.
that's
So
why.
everybody's up to date?
Yeah.
Good?
Okay.
I was looking for the email in a hurry, but I didn't find it yet.
Deputy Warden.
Yes, I do have a report. Actually, today, before this meeting, I had 2 today, so 3 meetings in one day. That's just how I like it. First one was home care.
You need 2 councilors that way.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when I'm out fishing. Anyway, first one was home care. I used to be on the home care board, but was absent for 4 years and jumped back on there. And after the first meeting, business as usual, it all came back. And, you know, some of the same problems are there still, like any other committee. Something that was interesting was home care. They've been putting in 1,400 hours a week. There's a lot of need for home care. I'm sure everybody here has a person they know that uses home care, and they, you know, they give you good service, and it's a good organization. Another meeting was a tourism type initiative from the municipality of Argyle. Some of you might be familiar that we had a best practice mission that went to the Îles de Madeleine, the Magdalen Islands, in October. There was a group of participants there that are all full of ideals now. The major one defined the municipality of Argyle as an Acadian cultural tourism region. 65% of residents are of Acadian descent, give or take. The name we came up with is La Région du Bon Temps, toujours acadienne, or the region of good times, or always, you know, Acadian, I guess, loosely translated. It's a not-for-profit group formed, Société Touristique Bon Temps d'Argyle. This is a very dynamic group and believes that the municipality has great potential regarding tourism opportunities. Some already exist, just not promoted enough. The tools are not available to some operators, organizers. Some of the goals, tying resources of this community. We have all kinds, some of you probably walk on those resources every day, don't realize it, but that's the way that we want to bring these resources out, highlighting this region's Acadian identity. Food is certainly an aspect that needs to be exploited to the max. Lots of food events or festivals already organized. For example, in Quinnen, they have the Wild Game Supper, well attended locally, but I bet you there's a lot of people that would pay a lot of money, tourists, to go to a Wild Game Supper. It's exciting. People would enjoy that. Also, need to instill ideal in tourism operators that what is familiar to us is a discovery to the tourists and develop experiences accordingly. Need to find all the treasures that this region has and develop them. So just to kind of give you a heads up of what we're doing, I will try to report every month or so, or every 2 months to kind of give you an idea. So anyway, just a little update. So
Thank you very much. Surratt?
Just a couple of things, not to drag the meeting on too long, but the Yarmouth County Solid Waste Park, the contaminated soil site, which was around, the CEO can help me on this, $500,000?
Yep.
$500,000, $523,000.
A little over, yep.
And we did get some gas tax money, we were able to,
Building Canada Fund.
Building Canada Fund on that. I believe it cost each unit around $70,000.
The very highest, yeah.
At the very highest,
Closer to
70,000 for
60.
the contaminated soil site. And what that means is that we can, now instead of sending the contaminated soil to Queens, I believe it was going to Queens, now we can accept it in Yarmouth, which will make money because we charge so much a ton. So this is what the hope of this is, that the contaminated soil site will raise money and make a profit and help pay some of the expenses that we have at the solid waste park. Also, we're in the discussion about our loader, which is a $260,000 unit, and the lease or the loan is up, and there's a meeting on Thursday of where we're going with that, and it seems like, I believe, we'll probably keep it for another couple of years and refurbish the loan for another 2 years, probably at a cost of $2,300 a month, and our share would be 1/3 of that every month for 2 years. That's it.
What are we paying now for a lease, you know?
The lease is $2,300 for
Oh,
that
that's what
loader.
it is now.
But we'll keep it up, and in another 2 years, then it'll be ours.
Okay, thank you.
Thursday, do you get the email?
Okay, anybody else have a report?
Should note that the $60,000 to $70,000 amount that Councilor Surratt has referred to will be covered by the gas tax. So
Yes.
that will have no impact on
The
the rate whatsoever. It's a project that is eligible for gas tax.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, Councilor Albright.
I just wanted to report on recreation. There was Skating with Santa at the Mariner Center. It was a free skate in December. It was fairly well attended. There are some upcoming, but I already read it in CAO's report, upcoming winter events going on as well. And one of them that I'm excited about is the trails, the walk on the trails, because I live next to
Oh, yes, yes,
one of the trails.
Yeah.
Be nice to see that promoted a little more.
yes, yeah, thank you. LeBlanc.
Actually, as far as official meetings, I haven't, we haven't had any actually, but we've had a push, or I've heard a push for some time in Westport to get a sort of a think tank group going for this municipality. Obviously, globally, the economy is in a sorry state, but a lot of people, or a few people at first, felt that we should maybe get some kind of committee group going, maybe not so official at first, just brainstorm ideas and different things to we could maybe do in our municipality to try to encourage stimulation to the economy. And actually, it was just a few people that may be pushing this idea on me, and lately I've heard through different people that this, maybe not so much just in my district, but in our municipality as a whole, that this should be something to look at. So I've already spoke to Alain about it, but I just thought I'd make it public that there is sort of a push. I mean, as a municipality, our hands are sort of tied in a sense. We don't have billions of dollars to stimulate anything, but a few forward-thinking minds put together definitely can't hurt. So personally, I'd like to look into that in the near future.
Next Monday, Tuesday night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it certainly falls, the timing couldn't be better.
Yeah, I agree with, for sure.
So that might, of course, we're referring to an item at 9E.
Yeah.
That I'm sure we'll go into great detail about the the economic plan and how we're going to move forward. But I think that's a start, and we might trigger that interest there and then take it.
It's kind of nice to hear some people still are, I don't know how to put it, but have hope or still looking to push quite hard. It's a positive thing for sure.
Okay, thank you.
That's really good.
No more lights.
I'll be excusing myself. At my age, I need 6 hours sleep when I go fishing.
Sleep
You're-
tight.
you-
Or the
Sleep
crew-
tight.
You're
or the
excused.
crew- Or the crew suffers.
Yeah, oh, yeah. All right. Good night.
See ya.
CAO's report.
Are there any questions?
Well, I've read through it.
Happy New Year.
It's very
This is the first in 4 years.
straightforward.
Yes, it is.
I will be. Oh, see, now you've done
Had a
it.
whole week to read.
We will be looking at setting a date for the priority setting session. That's going to come to council. What I'd like to do is coordinate what we would like to do as staff. We'd like to coordinate our strategy, our integrated community sustainability plan, our vision, our mission, everything. There's work still to be done to bring that to a conclusion and have an official release and approval. But also in terms of priority setting, all of that really, some of the priorities that the council has are priorities that are already underway. So what we'd like to do as staff is present to you what are the projects of significance that are either underway or are being contemplated. Obviously, it's hard to back out of the dewatering of West Pubnico. There's some projects that are underway we really can't undo. And so there, but however, what we'd like to have from council is an understanding of what is your top 3 priorities that are strategic, that are functional for the organization in the next 12 to 15 months. So that's why are we doing that? It drives the budget. So we have a strategy that says, okay, this is what we'd like to do with the ICSP, and then what we have is priorities that come out of some of our operational staff that is brought to your attention, and then council as a group picks 3. Doesn't mean that's the only 3 will be done. It means those are the 3 that you are insisting as a group, a majority, that these 3 things have to be done in 2012-13. So that's where we're going with this. We will have a workshop that won't be in a meeting setting like this. It will be off-site. Obviously, we'll take minutes, and the minutes will be public. But I mean, it's not a private meeting. It's just this environment isn't really conducive to that kind of discussion. So I'd like to be able to bring that to a conclusion by the February regular council. It's aggressive.
Okay.
It's aggressive, but I'd like to be able to meet that.
Yeah.
And so I'll be asking you to look at your schedules between now and the end of January. It's not a lot of work in terms of strategy and vision. The priority session will come after the February meeting, so they're 2 separate pieces. But there's not a lot of work there. It's probably 4 or 5 hours to clean up everything. But I need council's input in order to do it properly for you. Okay, that's what I wanted to. It's the only point I wanted to really make, kind of highlight again from my CEO report.
Thank you. Any questions to the CAO? Okay, we'll go on to other business. Road name request.
Mr. Warden, this is a private driveway.
Yeah.
And when 3 or more separate addressable buildings are served by common driveway, the driveway is considered a street and must be named. And so all of the people on the private driveway have signed and agreed that the name be Beaver House Lane. We did ask about a bilingual component, but they are not in a bilingual community. And so we didn't add Le Chemin as part of the recommendation. We did not change the name to Chemin des Castors.
Okay.
So move. We accept the recommendation.
moved that we forward this to the department?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. iPad policy. You've all had a chance to read it. We've seen it
This is
before. This is
correct.
the second.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you want to make a motion to accept this?
That would,
I'll make a motion that we
Thank you.
accept this policy.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded that we accept the iPad policy as presented.
Just on that, Mr. Warden, number 5, item 5. And if you go to item 5, it says repairing and replacing iPad. Damage considered accidental may be repaired at the expense of the municipality. And I guess something accidental, if I picked it up and it dropped off, hit the ground, of course, that's accidental. It happened in council chambers. What about if it happened at home, or I was getting out of my truck or whatever to come here? It says maybe. I don't know if I like that term. I don't know what the other people feel about it.
Well, it depends.
Yeah, I guess.
Depends on-
Yeah, you're
on-
right.
on-
Yeah, you're right.
Depends on severity, I suppose, or what.
I guess on that point, I could
Seems
turn my
like you
pad in
drove
and
over
get
it.
paper if that's what Councilor Murphy wants me to do, wouldn't he?
I'll address the question. The concern around the wording is that it's ambiguous, and it's done so on purpose. Because it's a case-by-case basis, we'd like to see that if there's an accident. Obviously, if your grandchild was throwing it around, that's different than if it fell out of your bag. So it's basically a case-by-case basis. But I mean, there's warranties, there's a lot of things that protect you from that. But
Thank
that's
you for that.
basically
Sorry.
that it is on purpose, because we would want to do that on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, you all heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Sponsorship project. This is something that was brought up to me. This is the Société de Museum in Pamlico. Guess we're all French here, we can all read it anyway. I guess they're looking at something different this year. They're looking for sponsorships. They've had sponsorship for December and January from local businesses that sponsored them so they can remain open and have visitors during the winter months, which are normally closed. So I don't know what.
I would like to maybe say a few words on that.
Yes.
Can they, oh yeah, so they can't wait then, I guess maybe I've answered my own question. They can't wait for grants organizations, because this is an ongoing thing.
The grants and organizations, we give them every year.
Yeah.
They're regular.
Or district community
regular
grant.
Or
Or
district
district
community grants, they've had one.
They've already had, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
We have been giving them their grants every year, as most of the other organizations. I don't know what council would decide.
I feel that they have a process like everybody else, and maybe they should, I guess, apply like everybody else does, and they've already had their share, like Mr. Warden, you've stated, that I say that we deny it.
Deputy Warden?
Thank you. I agree with Councilor Surratt. I wouldn't want to set a precedent because we do have other museums in the municipality, and I think this, even though the application did come to the municipality, I think it's more looking for local businesses. I think that if I understand correctly, Dennis Point Cafe, for example, sponsored one of the months, and so, I don't think this is something that should be brought to the municipality. When the time comes for the grants, they can apply like everybody else. And, every year we've been giving them money, rightfully so, because they are a good organization, don't get me wrong. But, in this case, I wouldn't want to set a precedent, so. Thank you.
It would be nice to have the local businesses or, sponsor, because they do advertise that who the sponsor is for the month and, okay, so, do we need a motion to deny or?
Yes, sir.
Are you making that a motion?
Yes, I make that motion, yes.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Economic plan successful proponent. Oh, yes, this is
This
you
is,
want-
sure, this is a recommendation coming from a committee that included municipal staff, but also the funder, COA, was represented, as well as the CDE&E and a member of the Economic Council, which is our current RDA, I guess. So we had actually a good mix of people, and we assessed this a number of different ways. And ultimately, we came to a decision that Chris Lowe Planning and Management Group was in our view, was the best
candidate.
Yeah. It was not the lowest cost candidate. There was part of the request for proposal that was approved by council included a breakdown of how we were going to measure. So those that made application understood that price was 20% of the decision. What we wanted to focus on is because with a consultant, you can have a wide range of price, but what we really focused on was experience. Do you have experience in rural economic development? And that was a critical piece. And two, showed that they had that more than others, and ultimately Chris Lowe's group was selected. So they've been aggressive. We need official endorsement from council. Council endorsed the process, but we'd like for council to endorse that decision of the subcommittee. So far, we're starting to get a buzz around this economic council work, and we'll probably be engaging a lot, including the president of the Chamber of Commerce of Argyle. We'll be forcing him. I'm not sure you know who that is, but he may or may not be sitting at this table, and may or may not have a solicitor in front of him. But anyway, I've said too much. But anyway, so we'll be engaging a lot of different people in the community, not just business, but organizations and lay people and students, youth, to try to get and this is really part of the approach for Chris Lowe. So we definitely make that recommendation that council approve it, and to engage Chris Lowe Planning and Management Group as the consultation firm for the municipality's long-term economic development plan. This is the plan that's funded 80% by COA.
This falls in pretty well in line with what Councilor Lebanon was saying earlier.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know some
Right
people
in
would
the
like to be part of this as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what we need is a motion. Sir.
Yeah, and what I was talking about earlier about the new tourism group that Bon Temps, when we heard these meetings were coming up, that for us it was great because we're in the startup stage, and we definitely want to be a part of this. We want to use tourism as a driver to drive the economy in Argyle, and I think this is a great opportunity. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to remind council before they make a decision that this particular work will be focused primarily on Argyle. It will not be entirely Argyle. It will focus on certain assets outside of our region that have a significant influence on our organization, either because we own it or because it has some sort of transportation or other economic driver. So the airport corporation will be part of the work that the consultant will be focusing on, as well as the Tuscan Business Park as an opportunity to potentially grow that particular area, but they'll also be focusing on industry. So what is it that's out there at the world level, at a larger scale that potentially would fit very well in this region. So it's not just about building what we have, it's also about looking at what's out there as potential growth.
Okay.
The hope that is that the recommendations will actually attract further ACOA funding
Okay.
to actually execute. That's correct. Our economic boundaries don't stop at our municipal boundaries.
That's right.
So we have to be cognizant of that.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept Chris Lowe Group as the successful bidders for the project.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Could I say something, Mr. Warden, just I
Motion
was-
carried.
When we were opening the packages, and I thought that was very good, there's a package that came in while the deadline was 2 o'clock, and this was about 20 after 2, a package came in, and it was not open. And we do follow the rules. They were too late.
Thank you. RDA Review Panel Report Summary.
Well, I planned on spending 4 hours on this tonight,
That's
but
all right.
in light of
All right. Do you
in
go
light
back
of
in tomorrow?
in light of maybe I will cut back. Basically, this particular item is first is to be a reminder to those councillors that are available tomorrow between 7 and 9. There is a meeting at the Grand Hotel, and it's the purpose is to discuss the panel's recommendations that are basically looking to change how RDAs work, actually eliminate RDAs and replace it with something else called the Regional Enterprise Network. So there will be less of them, and the partners in the REN, if the province endorses that, would be different than our RDA partnership. It would be including Digby County in its entirety, including the town and municipality of Digby, and would exclude certain areas of Shelburne. So the area is a little different, and so I think the purpose is to discuss that particular area and ensure that council has an opportunity to talk to their colleagues regionally and say, listen, how is this going to work? Ask questions, share concerns. There's a number of recommendations that came out of this. You have seen it, so I won't go over it in huge detail, but I will say that on the back of this document, it shows the estimated municipal funding requirements for the REN.
Yeah.
And we did initial work at the Argyle level, and that's the last page of the attachment, that makes the assumption that the breakdown of that 290,000 that's required for the municipal units will be based entirely on population. From what we read, that it looks like that might be the breakdown. So assuming everyone in that region is a willing participant to an regional economic development model, the estimated funding would be about $47,000 per year for Argyle. And I can't tell you how many staff that might mean, or it's very preliminary. But it is an indicator, I guess, at least initially, that it will cost more in order to be a partner in the REN than it would have been to be a partner in
The RDA.
the old RDA model, which was 30 to 35 grand.
Is that because the feds are not putting in?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
the reason?
That is exactly the reason, because and the fact that the region is larger kind of offsets some of the cost differentials. We're going from 13 RDAs to 6 RENs. Again, not approved by the province as of yet. It's an independent panel that's made this recommendation, and so we have to just be very conscious of what it means for Argyle, and how that's going to work for us. We don't know, the timing is unknown. We might get more information tomorrow, so it's a reminder that we try to participate in the meeting tomorrow. I will be in attendance.
I will be there, yeah.
Okay.
I want to be there.
Okay. So
I
we got
think
5,
that,
6. Great. Okay.
The section in Shelburne County it goes to the new provincial boundary.
Yes.
The other side, like Shelburne Municipality and Lockport, won't be in this.
Correct.
That's where the line is drawn in the new REN, I guess. Side River, yeah.
Is this open to the public?
I believe it's a meeting for council at this time, mayors and councilors. So there may be other representatives, like other staff members that might be engaged, but
Yeah.
it's UNSM that's putting it on.
Yeah,
No. Yeah,
yeah, okay. Sit on that.
that's it.
Yeah, thank you. Financial request, District Community Grant, Comité des Aînés, Argyle. My district, but I can't make a motion. Did I approve it? Huh? Yeah. That's beside that, that's conflict of interest, yeah.
I'll make that a motion.
I'll second it.
It just didn't happen to turn white overnight. It just come- I earned every one of these.
I may have compromised my reappointment.
Heard the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Notice of motion per councillor. Does anybody have a notice of motion for a future meeting? If not,
Organization policy.
Number 11.
oh, yeah, sorry about that. Grant your organization policy. This is a second reading, or we need an approval for this? Where are we
We
at?
actually made the approval at the last, so it is for
Yes.
information, but
Okay.
it was, if you look at the highlighted yellow,
I think we made a few minor changes.
yeah, I mean, you can make a motion to accept the minor, the document as presented. It's probably the easiest way to do it, because at the last meeting, we had a lot of conversation around 90% of the grants, 10% of the grants, blah, blah, and so if you just make a motion to accept what is presented here, it just cleans it up.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that there is a change that we didn't discuss at the last meeting, and is that the 5.2, funding for any grant in excess of 4,000, it used to say funding for all infrastructure funding requests and any grant in excess of 4,000. So we decided that really it was the amount that was more concerning to us in terms of, I guess, asking the community to give us additional information. So if we give a grant of $2,000 at its infrastructure, we don't require them to give us a report at the end, but if it's 4,001, we do. That's the only change that wasn't discussed at the last meeting. The other
Okay.
changes, for those of you who weren't here, 90% of the grants will be remitted in the spring, and there'll be a fall session that will remit the other 10% of the budget. And in the grants program, what we'll say is in the application process, it will indicate what last year's approved amount was. So they'll have an idea of what 90% might look like.
Yes.
But because it's not approved until the application process is passed, we can only give them a year behind. And so that's,
Oh, yeah, okay.
so I guess a
Yeah.
motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion to accept this new policy.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Question period. Any questions from the public or comments or? If not,
Seconder.
we have seconder. We have a seconder.
I'll second it, I guess.
Okay.
You were disappointed.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for coming.
John Murphy.